She came home yesterday and asked.
Nak. Mio sambula re, no sambula maleka, bulanakwa, halo algeta, malolele, talofalava, and ni sambula vinaka. Firstly, I wish to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we are standing on, and on which we are all gathered, the people of the Vanua of Suva. I recognize their continuing connection to land, water, seas, and the community. I pay my respect to their elders, past, present, and future leaders, and the custodians of the land, Tulo Saka. I also acknowledge the presence of some of our distinguished guests here this evening, the representative from the Australian High Commission, the High Commissioner of Samoa, the Archbishop of the Catholic Church, Archbishop Peter Loichon, the Archbishop Winston Halapua, the PRS Rector Simon Mani, Mbula Vinaka, and welcome. You may not take this. I now call upon the chaplain of the PTC to begin with a word of prayer.
Let us pray. God, who has gone before us, God who sits with us and dwells with us this night, God who leads us onwards and shares our stories, shares our times, and shares our life. Be with us this night, we pray, as we share stories with one another. Amen.
Thank you very much, Reverend Mark. This time I'd like to accord a special welcome to our chief guest, Professor Unaisi Mbamba. Professor, winaka pale bunayalo winaka. Na nomni ngoma na bisureti malumalumu engole mai and a kornibuli menasese. Thank you for accepting our 11th hour invitation, Professor, despite your super busy schedule, and for that we are truly appreciative. Your presence here today to grace the occasion is truly a blessing. I now request the ladies from the Pacific Theological College to come and garland our chief guest. Thank you very much, ladies. And now I call upon the principal of the Pacific Theological College, Reverend Professor Upolu Vaai, to just take us through the brief introduction of the book launch.
Madam Chief Guest, Professor Unaisi Mbamba, all the distinguished guests, church leaders, as well as governments, and everyone who has gathered here today. Purivinaka, Talo Falava. Everything living and flowing is dying in the trap of coloniality. Pasifika communities whose life is shaped by complexity and never-ending flow of relationships are caught between the machinations of neoliberal capitalism on the one hand and Christian fundamentalism on the other. The socio-economic and political indices in various UN documents alarmingly revealed not only the loss of resilience across all sectors of Pacific societies, but also the illusion of progress and a dependency on a flawed development model that extracts, removes, and compartmentalizes our interwoven ecological life world for profit and gain. Much has been written on the flaws of the current model of development since the impact of coronavirus pandemic into 2020 and 2021. These highlighted the extractive nature of development, its destructive ethics of more is better within a flawed progressive philosophy of growth, and its anthropocentric assumptions that our living vanua, our ancestral moana, and our shared skies is merely a commodity for trade and exchange. Dr. Jenny Te Paa has put it well in her introduction into the book, and I quote, "One of the most egregious and largely overlooked ways in which the cultural traditions, the spiritual strengths, the abundant natural resources of Pasifika have been demeaned, diminished, or erased has not simply been through ongoing systemic and often gratuitous violence as per the colonial legacy. Rather, it has also been through the deliberate distorting, mistelling, or just plain not telling at all the comprehensive truths of history, especially since colonial times." End of quote. The situation here necessitates a new itulangi, a different frame of thinking, doing and of being. One that it recognizes the relevancy of faith and indigenous-based communities' values, philosophies of life, and spiritualities. The above provides the impetus for this book project, which is part of the PTC initiative Against the Odds, the Audacity to Believe, led by our Institute for Mission and Research under the leadership of the director, Casimira. The initiative is the furthering of the whole-of-life educational vision of PTC, as well as actioning the mandate of the church leaders in 2017 and 2018 about the need to research, write, and produce materials about the Pasifika Ainga to articulate our shared extended Ainga and its multiple interrelated strands for awareness and education, and to contribute to church mission, development, including national and regional social and political policy design and implementation. To address the above need, the Pacific Theological College produced this first volume titled Restoring the Pasifika Household, published by its press. Three key concepts in the title of the book call for clarification. First, the book uses the term Pasifika. The term is now a central character of the Pacific of PTC whole-of-life vision. It is a form of decoloniality and a redemptive renewal of the Pacific focus to both decolonize and relearn the life-affirming knowledge and ways of being that have been pushed aside and discredited by the forces of coloniality for the sake of a whole-of-life well-being. It is premised on a vision of the Pacific Church leaders, new framing of the Pacific as the household of God, an interconnected whole that according to Te Paa in her introduction, and I quote, is utterly fragile, vulnerable, at times non-existent, and is now more than ever vulnerable to political avarice. End of quote. However, in respect to upholding the value of diversity, which is central to Pacific relational poiesis, the authors are given free rein to reference a suitable term that they wish to refer to the region, as long as the whole of life values and decolonial principles foundational to the book project are reflected in their contribution. This decision for authors to use any term with reference to the Pacific is in the spirit of the biblical Pentecost, allowing for diverse cultural utterings based on the fact that the region, as diverse as Pacifica, is not yet ready to confine itself to one term or one naming that might devalue its diverse beauty. Second, the book tells stories in a restored fashion. Story is our house of being, or in my language, in Samoa, it is our fale talatala, our house of multiple utterings or extended utterings. It is our storehouse of memory. It is the vehicle whereby knowledge moves in lands and in people, like the rainbow that always moves as we move. Stories are liquid versions of our past, present, and future yearnings. They furnish what others may see as empty souls, empty lands, and empty spaces. They soothe, yet also correct and rehabilitate, both conflicting and interweaving at the same time, both resists and embrace at the same time. But this is not tragic. The tragedy is when stories are conformed into a oneified narrative. When we add the prefix re to the word story, we are acknowledging that the fact that there is a problem in the house. A digestive, oneified story is moving permanently into the house, regulating when, where, and how it should occupy the house. Thus, therefore, an act of fale, or hard talk, or honest tellings is required. Hence is the selection of bold and unapologetic authors to do the restoring through revisiting, reimagining, reclaiming, repositioning, and retelling of the stories of our Pasifika house. Central to fale is the audacity to believe that there is another life-affirming story that is possible. The seeds of this story can be found underneath our footsteps, in our moving shadows that we've often neglected, grounded in our indigenous and faith-based knowledge and practices. To align to the whole of life vision, PTC aims to develop transdisciplinary projects like this one, to reclaim who we are, an open house without disciplines and walls, extended and integrated. We in the theological arena need to move out to engage with other disciplines. Why? Because in our Pacific household, we live in open houses, share the open moana, embrace the open horizon. Why are we repeating the colonial mistake of placing imaginary boundaries on disciplines? The 13 courageous Pacifica contributors are from different disciplines, who in their own right are the matua, the elders of their own fields. And you can read their names at the back of the program that you have there. Authors have engaged with restoring of movements, bodies, ideas, power, ideologies, relationships, material and immaterial, education, politics, economics, theology, ecumenism, health and well-being, spiritualities and cultures and languages in the Pasifika Ainga. They exposed the stories of the colonial masters, both external and internal. They navigated into stories twisted and repackaged to serve the colonial mecca story. They uncover and read anew the rich Pasifika faith and indigenous traditions and spiritualities, and how these can assist the region to mitigate the impacts of development practices that deplete our community's resilience. They are non-apologetic for the sake of healing. Capitalizing the word story in the title does not mean the project proposes the only story. Rather, it means Pasifika, as a diverse and distinctive region, deserves to have its place alongside other stories. Restoring is a performative process of deconstructing old stories and reconstructing new ones, to the point of actioning and applying these newly created ones to life and well-being. It reflects the vision that any restoring is in constant motion, an ongoing process, always subject to review and modification. It is never settled and rigid. In fact, this is the very nature of Fa'alitalatala, extended from generation to generation. And lastly, the book uses the term household. In a more decolonial way, three things are worth considering about this metaphor of the household. First, in the way we see it and interpret it and read it, it has open multiple extensions and relations. It is never rigid, nor centers on the human being. And it should never be. Second, a household must be about disconnection and also multidimensional. It is never compartmentalized, nor centers on the one story, one person, one absolute. Third, it is about housekeeping. It is never about managing the house, as in the Greek idea of oikos, embraced by Western ecumenism, but rather about relating, keeping, and liberating the house. Pasifika communities have their own diverse way of languaging these three aspects of the household metaphor. So to end, let me take this opportunity while I have the floor as one of the editors to convey our appreciation to several people and organizations. To our guest speaker for taking the honor to launch our book tonight. To Director Aisake Casimira and IMR team for leading the project. To the PTC Press and the manager and the team for publishing the book. To Reverend Dr. Lydia Johnson for doing the hard work of copy editing. Lastly, to the authors for the breathtaking feast of mana that will no doubt trigger further conversations and actions towards restoring our Pasifika household. Manuia tele nei whamoemoe, and we look forward to Madam's keynote speech tonight. Soifua.
Nakavakalevu, Reverend Professor Upolu Vaai for that. I'm reminded of a famous African proverb that says, until the lion tells his side of the story, the tail of the hound will always glorify the hunter. So for having said that, I thank the authors for penning their thoughts unapologetically, providing a voice for the members of the Pasifika household, Pasifika with an S. Vinaka. Next, I would like to call upon the poetry. I think there are some poetry readings. So this event is not only a launching of the book, but also a showcase of some creativity. So I call upon the, I think the young academics for some poetry reading, and followed by a performance by the Mata Dance Group. Vinaka.
Restoring the Pacific Household. Into the household of God we trot, proper homage we pay to Mother Earth. How innocent she accepts the congregation of all, respecting its purity, seeking and saving the lost. I feel like I belong here, the sound and the beauty of the environment I have seen, which capture my mind and my heart, how I never want to leave. This grave issue has threatened the world, our life, health, dignity, and security, all concerned. It is agreed with a total cost, care for the creation we relentlessly cause. I feel sorry for the loss of our nature. People start to grieve for their lives and home. For we cannot stop the terrible effect, a result from our own heart of stone. Vinaka.
Mata dance group, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sure you can do way more than better than that. Now I call upon Reverend Daniela Ratawa to come and introduce our chief guest.
Vinaka, a brief introduction of our chief guest tonight. Professor Unaisi Mbamba has had about more than 35 years at work in the field of education, mostly higher education and development. Her work has been in teaching, researching, publication, and other educational and development-related work in the Pacific Island. She is a teacher, researcher, and a prolific author. Unaisi's 37 years of experience has included academic leadership, international accreditation, and thesis supervision, examination, and mentoring for postgraduate level, institutional strengthening, international consultancy work in higher education, publication, and policy advice at national, regional, and global levels. Professor Una is currently the acting Vice Chancellor and Professor of Education at the Fiji National University, FNU. Prior to that, she spent 7 years at the University of Guam, living there in 2017. She is passionate about quality and relevance in education. Her research, publication, and consultancy interests also include teacher education, education reform, and international aid in Pacific education, indigenous knowledge, research and development, higher education, education for sustainable development, women leadership in the Pacific Islands, rural and remote education. Since 2011, she has also engaged across sectors in policy development, work in Northern Pacific, as well as engaging in scholarship and public speaking engagements, especially around Pacific epistemology, ecological justice, well-being, and the traditional ideas of sustainable development as complementing global ideas of the same. She has had 200 plus publications, including a number of books. Her PhD thesis and book, Knowing and Learning, an indigenous Fijian approach, was recognized as a distinguished contribution to international and indigenous knowledge in education at the 2007 American Educational Research Association. Professor Unaisi Mbamba has worked in several countries, including Fiji, Tonga, Samoa, Cook Islands, Vanuatu, Solomon Islands, Marshall Islands, New Zealand, Rota, Saipan, Guam, Palau, with brief stints in the US. She speaks Fijian and Pidgin English fluently and has some understanding of Tongan, Samoan, and Kiribati. She is married to Professor Tupeni Mbamba and has 3 children, Felipe, Melanie, and Tupeni Jr. Ladies and gentlemen, that is just a brief introduction of our chief guest, and I hope in reality she is more than what I explained tonight. Now I shall call upon the Mata Dance group to present the book to our chief guest.
She came home yesterday and asked what tomorrow's gonna be. Will it be like yesterday or will it change?
'Cause yesterday's not to remember. Why do we throw things when they could be fixed? Why do we want so much? Needs are all that matter. as we sit and dream.
We were told to hide, and hide we did, to forget the many things that made us
We will tell stories in the Nasaku, kau nandamu,
Kadimai vale andi buan romo rangone alewan Domai bodo miri alangi langi ni uda Miri lele a miri alangi langi ni uda Miri lele a miri alangi langi ni uda Miri le, miri Kadimai vale andi buan romo rangone alewan Domai bodo miri alangi langi ni uda Miri lele a miri alangi langi ni uda Miri lele a miri alangi langi ni uda Miri le, miri Pasitaki mai na wanga totolo melai usai Aniki na songo lutu alangi langi ni uda Lutu lele a lutu alangi langi ni uda Lutu lele a lutu alangi langi ni uda Lutu le, lutu Pasitaki mai na wanga totolo melai usai Aniki na songo lutu alangi langi ni uda Lutu lele a lutu alangi langi ni uda Lutu lele a lutu alangi langi ni uda Lutu le, lutu
Pinakamata Dance Group, I now invite our chief guest, Professor Naisina Bamba, to address us and launch the book.
We were told to hide, and hide with it, to forget the many things that made us be.
Then we remembered what we
Can you please find a chair? And if you're older than me, please find a chair. Those who are young, get the chair. And I would like the older people to sit in front. Hurry up, please. Konai needs to sit in front. Okay. Honorable ministers of the Fijian government, excellencies and members of the diplomatic corps who are here tonight, members of academia, fathers and mothers of Pacific academia. A number of you are here tonight. Konai Helu Thaman, please take a seat. Professor Randy Thaman, please take a seat. I don't know whether this is correct. Pardon me, Emeritus Archbishop Halapua. Our very favorite Archbishop Peter Loy Chong of the Catholic Church, the Principal of the Pacific Theological College, the Reverend Professor Upolu Vaai and your good wife Tua, Pacific Theological College staff, faculty, the Deputy Principal hanging out there, and Cheryl, students, friends, associates, children, ladies and gentlemen. I want to really say that when I came in tonight, I was very shocked. And I knew this was a Samoan trick. Because if he told me who was here, I wouldn't have come. I actually have a duty at USP Dining Hall right now. I'm choosing to be with people, and I'm doing that well, I think. I read the book, and I thought a few things that I'll share with you tonight. I hope we'll celebrate the excellent work the Pacific Theological College is doing. In the past 16 years, some of us who push indigenous knowledge and epistemology, indigenous voices, indigenous resistance, anything against epistemic violence, those of us who are off the movement for a little more than a few decades, and in Konai's case, forever, we must thank you, Pacific Theological College. The reason is that was the only place, institution, I felt in those 16 years we could go to and address epistemic violence and continue to decolonize and continue to speak with our voices, continue to dance our stories, continue to paint, do poetry, to feast together. In and around Pacific epistemologies, the voices of our people, of the oceanic oceans, islands, to make sure that our voices are heard or are seen, usually by those that have already spoken and continue to speak. Sometimes, as it were, the Pacific did not exist except for a mere geographical presence. So tonight I start with thanking the Pacific Theological College. And the fact that you've established a press has addressed decade-old conversations we've had in decolonizing Pacific, that we don't decolonize until we own the press, because that is the point where we are colonized. So to you, Professor Upolu Vaai, and the staff of Pacific Theological College, thank you for continuing the decolonization work that sometimes some of us have started, stopped. It's like a diarrhea that is not going away. I start with 4 stories, and then I really must just bless the book after that, with perhaps weaving of 3 themes. The first story involves you, Randy Thaman. I grew up in a Fijian village, that you know already, because I've written that part of me. By a grandmother that ate totondro every day. Up until today, I still know what totondro is. Maybe Randy knows. And then one day, I reached the university and saw Professor Thaman in our geography class, chew totondro. And I was saying, I'm going to go to my grandmother in Tailevu, where Peter Lechong and I, our mothers are from. We are going to say, I'm going to tell my grandmother that one professor called Randy Thaman is chewing Totonro. So I went back one day and said, Boo, you know, you told me to chew Totonro all my life. I refused. Now I chew. Oh, why is it changing? You know, in Vungalei, people are critical. Why has changed? Did you meet a man you like? Is he chewing Totonro? I said, no, my teacher. Oh, what's his name? Professor Randy Hell. La la la. He said, swears, and then says, oh, now you believe in the Vungalei Totonro? That's my first story. It's very hard for me as a child to believe that maybe the Vungalei Totonro is just as good as the one in Laudala. Until Professor Randy chewed the Totonro, did I go back and affirmed my grandmother. The response is a good swear word. I can't repeat that, there's too many priests in the room. The second story went, and I'm a Methodist trained person. That's my secondary education, Methodist Church. So we have a teacher who taught us math. Her name was Reverend Mary Mills. So, and there's a taxi driver that goes up and down Delinavesi, and it goes like this. You know, maths, I'm not good at. I think I just pass to go to USP. So it goes like this. And all of us will go, Jack, because Jack is the name of the taxi driver. And then we are punished. One day in the maths class, the Reverend Mary Mills of the Methodist Church was having maths. It was getting hard for some of us. And Jack goes by and does, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. The first time I heard a reverend swear, she said, go and have sex with Jack. I said, madam, I'm going to talk to the Methodist Church about you. I didn't know you were allowed to swear like us. You know, as a growing child, your levels and your moral compass came from those that wore the collar to the back, front. My third story comes from Konai Heluthaman and her classes, very disruptive. We were decolonized while we didn't know it. It was called decolonization. In the 80s, it was called, you are the choice of my parents. Konai was so beautiful, you know, you still are. But when you are in your 20s and 30s, I think the day she was saying that, she had a Casio watch and a yellow dress belt. Yeah, that impression, you be very careful if you're a teacher. So Kanai stands up to talk about, you're the choice of my parents. You come clad in your fine mats and blah, blah, blah. And you did not know that my love was somewhere else, in the ironwood tree. You're the choice of my parents. Anyway, that was Kanai Heluthaman. And then one day it was much stronger. She was going, decolonize the academy. And I'm going, whoo, it's no longer soft. It's coming strong. My final story is the story that really troubled me. And that's from a fellow Samoan traveler, a Samoan head of state, a Samoan elder. It really pulled together for me the book. And that is Vanities and Whispers of Samoan Indigenous Religion, was Tupua. Because I was so bothered by Tupua. And Tupua later on gave me his mother's comb, you know. And I thought, oh, it's a Fijian comb. Tupua wrote in Vanities and Whispers of Samoan Indigenous Religion, which was a keynote to the World Council of Religion, 1999, later became a book in 2015, Huia Press. Tupua wrote, amongst other good things, to decolonize the church, to decolonize and to address epistemic violence. Tupua writes and spoke, in all these years of Samoan indigenous religion, why do we whisper when we talk about our spiritualities? Your whispering tells us that you are not proud of who you are, but you looked after Samoa. You looked after the Nayufi. You know, a Samoan chief generally kills a Nayufi to thank his clan for doing something. Apologizes to the Nayufi, that's the shark, and wraps the Nayufi in white fine met, Samoan met. But he goes on in his address to the World Council of Religion in 1999, why are we whispering when we're talking about things that matter to us as a people, that has saved the Pacific sustainably over the years? The fact that we try all the time to relate to everything around us, including the Nayufi, that ecological balance that I later write about. I start with those 4 stories because the book is so powerful, and I'm so glad I'm still alive to see books coming out still in decolonizing and dehomogenizing the academy. And I'm glad some of you who've started the movement in the 80s, 70s are still around. For me, I draw attention to this book, and I believe that Tupua's call for shouting out what we think the world is about really is about addressing epistemic violence. Epistemic violence is about the story of Suva, for example, where a people take over a whole island archipelago or a whole bit of Suva just because they think they can, just because they can speak the language of taking over. So this power is addressed today in this book. I cannot do justice to all the chapters, but let me try. The book for me is about unwhispering things about ourselves. The book for me is about the younger group of scholars, if I can call you young, taking over from the older generation of thinkers, and really through dance, through poetry, through the chapters, it speaks so loud to some of us. It just makes us happy and smile. It's like the smile of a father who is telling the son, don't womanize. They have womanized all their lives. For those of us who've decolonized, we see this book, it's like, that sort of story. We're smiling because we know what you are going to go through. Yeah? People are going to write about you up and down, but it doesn't matter. You've done right by us. So the smile, the quiet smile. To the book. It gives me great pleasure then today to launch Restoring the Pasifika Household. One of the authors of the book, Cynthia Moelobeda, professor of Christian ethics, University of California, she authored the chapter, Resisting Structural Evil. Wow. I said, this woman's going somewhere. Resisting structural evil. I didn't know evil was structural. I knew that evil had 2 feet. I didn't know it was structural as well. It is very structural. It is very institutional. It is worse than it's structural because you can't shake a strong structure. Eh? That epistemic violence that's tied to our structures. But she goes on to say a lot of things, and I must just say that reading her chapter is like drinking our people's wisdoms, drinking from that beautiful source of water that's keeping us alive. She is saying, wherever you are, read this, the Resisting Structural Evil, Love as Ecological Economic Vocation. Cynthia Moelobeda is really digging deep into asking about Western models of development. We are so preoccupied with that. 2 weeks ago, we were in the Fijian Economic Summit, and one woman came to me and said, is there circular about this? About what? About the economic models they're using. I said, well, we have to fit it in our Pacific households. That was my reply. Ladies and gentlemen, everything around us today calls for us to restore the Pacific household. One of the first themes I took out, and there are only 3 that I'll talk about today, is that the book addresses politics of moral responsibility. By the way, I lost my voice after 10 weeks of running the National University. So, the destiny of the Pacific household does not lie in conversation of only the economy, does not lie in wealth, does not lie in only power, faith, but it does call for a deeper moral responsibility. I can't put it any better than that. Our duty, honoring the image of God, our duty as citizens is to look for that moral compass. Somebody, I hear my former brilliant student, Archbishop Loy Chong, saying, yeah, Baroness, what's the moral compass? That's for Peter to say, the Archbishop. But that is what we're talking about in the book. What is our responsibility to the world, to the Pasifika household? I remember one day Konai and I were talking because we are trying to decolonize education in the 70s and 80s. Every time we decolonize, we ask for international aid. It is like we take 10 steps and 20 back. Konai. It was so hard. But ours is the moral duty, the spiritual duty to push forward and really articulate what it is about the Pasifika political values of our time, the values of distribution, of relative distribution. What is it about the economy? What is it about ecological balance that we really need to speak about in an economic summit? Then the book goes on and talks about relationships. What are we doing? Our Pasifika values banks on our relationships, our covenants between families, our communities. And I believe the Archbishop's PhD was on that. Critical to this political arrangement is the principle of the community as the agent, the moral agent, and each member and all members jointly responsible for the community's common good. Oh, let me give an everyday example now. I have a team in the room, including Madam Mistress of Ceremony. They are my PhD students. We won 85,000 and went to our community. Woo! I tell you, all the theology I haven't studied, all the education theories I didn't know, climate change theories, it's in the community. It's not with us who read it. So, yes, we are going to push for community common good, but how? How do we do that? You know, we are trying to understand the household of God, the Pasifika household, from our own viewpoints. And Reverend Professor Upolu is right. The meta-narratives of our people, we need to also hear. I personally have written about silences, because for the Fijian, at least in Vungale, where I come from, it's the silencers that speak the truth. And most of the time, because we can't put word on the book about silences, we miss the truth about what our people really want us to see. Our experience of 1 year in the villages, I tell you, it really nearly killed me. And this was a village I grew up in. I thought I knew what the community need, the common good. I've had to really relook and slow down. After 1 year, I learned a hard lesson, and that is, maybe the village is supposed to make you rest. Because if you make the village look like a town, where will you have your rest? Because now, after building my house, I go there to just sleep. So, just questioning what we are doing to the household, as we try as a community to give it the common good, maybe in building and rebuilding and pushing good relationships because of climate, because of women's rights and everything else, maybe we need to relook again at a new form of governance, perhaps in politics, that will really hear our people. Second just theme that I took out of the book, perhaps running through some of the chapters, is that education really is for really resilience. I'm wondering today with the decade of education sustainable development. At the University of the South Pacific in the decade of ESD, 2015 I think, we ran up and down looking for money to publish 3 books on ESD at USP when I was there. The Japanese gave us the money. That's an education for sustainability at USP. The book tells me that education really is for resilience. In my house in the village, I've planted lemongrass all over the house. So when people come home to ask for tea, I tell them, drink the lemongrass. Don't pull it. because you'll see my go cut it with the scissors. Because the lemongrass is expensive in Guam, where I lived for 7 years, $4.50 a cup. But the people in Vungale resist the education for resilience through the lemongrass. They don't want the lemongrass. They want the tea made by Punja. That is a huge conversation today as we talk about Upolu, the household. We restore the household must begin with loving ourselves, I thought. Love the lemongrass. The doctors tell us it's better than tea. People in Vungale will not have it. It's free. Okay, so education for resilience, education for agency. You know, when I read Manulani's work, chapter in the book, I also read Upolu's dirting the earth or redirting ourselves, redirting. I love it. It's like Upolu Konai said, and I agree, if you were a priest in the 1960s, you'll be defrocked. Good luck to the Samoans. We must pay tribute to our seniors, like Konai, Randy, Halapua. These are people who are harping about decolonization. It makes us legal today. It makes Upolu save his job because in the 60s, you're defrocked. But agency today is really good, Reverend Upolu. I loved your chapter. You know, each chapter in this book would call for a new book. The chapter will be the one given to people to comment. And I'd love the dancing of the young people. I don't know how to put that in a book. You know, my head is not there yet. And then the poetry. I love the way you break the everything and just do your young thing. You need to tell us, how do we put your young resistance into our books? But Upolu, agency. If there's one thing I've learned from PTC, you know, they don't just talk, eh? Every time I go there, there's something happening. Congratulations, PTC. I felt by just reading the chapters that I might recover. I've been sick for a month. Today was the last day of council at FNU. It is like, wow, what is agency? You know, we are trying to rebuild the new household, Upolu. We're restoring our Pacific household. Ooh, good luck. Agency should be not a narrative, not a meta-narrative. It must be particular to context. Agency must be particular to context. In other words, if we're in a way, it should be appropriate to the 1,200 people in Niue, or Tokelau. Tokelau is 1,200. Agency is when we try to do something to address the wrongs of domination, the wrongs of exploitation. Here, I was thinking, because I'm on the National Committee for Girmit, what is bothering me, and I think I'm losing sleep over it, Upolu, you might help. Can we just have something on the Melanesian? Because, you know, they came before the Girmitiers. Nobody's really thought of a public holiday for them. We cannot just deal with majority groups. The Indians, the indigenous Fijians, the Samoans. What about the Melanesians who were slaves before that? You know, in restoring the Pacific household, make sure the stories of our minority groups, stories of those who were told. At the end of the Girmit, people were told, out of 60,900 something Indians, 40% went back. They were promised to be supported on their way back. The colonial government did not honor that. So they still went back 40%. But the Melanesians, after they did the labor, they were just told, you know what they were told to? I think in Upolu's village they do that. So that's why you have tour. It's like this. Okay, you're finished. Okay, that's the bush. Fly into the bush. It's like, today at USP, Paul and I are supposed to be hosting the dinner for Girmit today and tomorrow. My day is tomorrow, as acting VC of FNU. But what's bothering me in restoring that household of the Girmit and the indigenous Fijian will honor that through the Ratusukuna Day. However way you cut the apple, we need to now we need to now believe in what Upolu is saying, that in restoring our household, there are people always minused. Our household is not just Indian and Fijian. And I've said this over and over. The Melanesians were brought here first. There were other groups too. So agency, I'll leave it to those of you who are young, because I fought this for 40 years, I think. Those of you who are young must remember there's many stories to be heard. Some stories are louder than others, just like some histories are louder, just because people knew how to get into the history books. What about sustainability and education? We are trying that now. That is the decade for sustainability. But thank you, Upolu. In the creation of this book, we see the push again for education, for sustainability. In the publication speaks and has profound chapters that push for educational values that hang around what is going to happen after us, after all of us. Because we are not just going to be here. We will go. Now, what happens when we go? That's the hard question the book is asking. You know, with Manulani's ho'au or nu'au. You are going to be resilient. You are going to be agency to bring about change for the better, for all of us. What about sustainability? What is going to be left? Only Girmit and Itaukei? No, what about the Melanesians? We cannot pretend they are not here. What about the Samoans who chose to live among us? What about the Tongans? I myself have a household that is called Tonga. I didn't create that. Something happened. The third theme I want to say today, and maybe through a story, is really the traditions of agency. The traditions of agency wherever we are in the Pacific. Sometimes the vulnerable among us, they know what they want. But, it's just a lack of agency sometimes. Or when they are engaging in agency, some of us who are educated in particular ways, can't see that our people actually want change. Here is when I want to wrap up to say there's a whole lot of storing. I will just want to read from the Reverend Havea in his chapter, reminding us that despite being the so-called crown of God's creation, humans are meant to live in humility. Oh, God. And graciousness in the knowledge that their coming into being is an act of God's generosity. I really just need to read that again. After reading the book and reading Cornai's comments and, the end of the book, the Reverend Dr. Tevita Havea reminded us that we kind of need to live with creation with humility and graciousness in the knowledge that our coming into being is really an act of God's generosity. I was sick 2 weeks ago. I thought I died a couple of times. The reason is the flu, the doctor said, will not finish after it finishes. Because after COVID, he told me, you will be weak for a long time. One or two of those mornings, I thought I had to look out to see that the sun is up. Because I actually thought the night I had died, just the way I knocked out. But really, our generous God, what are we to do with that generosity? There is a whole lot of behavior that I see that are not humble. A whole lot of behavior that are not gracious. A whole lot of behavior that we deal with every day that speak of power and unchecked power. Sometimes I ask whether the education we're receiving must really just start again from when we were taught humility in a village. Why have we, the education that we've received, forgotten about humility? And I think in the light of the Bibles that all of you, except I can't pretend I'm an expert in that. One of the first things you learn when you go to a church school is humility. And you learn that in many ways. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, this publication for me is so profound. I'm 60 today. It speaks to the 40-something or 50 years of us collectively in the Pacific. PTC, those of you who don't know, all of us learned resistance from PTC. It was called contextual theology. And Konai would probably attest to this. Before we even built the Oceania Center at USP in 1996, we were going to PTC because they had SPATs, they had contextual theology, and they had the journal that talks about what we're doing. But Reverend Upolu, the editors, this book is another level of contextual theology. I really would like to congratulate you. And I hope everyone here will buy 20 copies or more so that you can share the insights and the excitement contained within the book. And it is now my great pleasure as a fellow traveler in decolonization to launch this very powerful publication. Congratulations again.
We will tell our stories in defiance and mend our brokenness.
Pinakavakalevu Professor Unaisi Nambobo Mama. Wow, that was a feast of ideas, a challenge to the young and upcoming academics to keep writing our story, to continue restoring the Pasifika voices. The next up, we now invite I think another poetry reading and another performance by the young academics and the Mata Dance Group.
So they can pass it on. Here on the edge, we remember who we are.
That the road will be easy for many to take, that it will ever reach the end.
My story is well kept in a box, so vulnerable, maybe because you're looking at me from the outside. You know me through what you've done to me, the way your ill development has controlled me. It has imprisoned me in my box, fed with knowledge that isn't mine, abused in ways where I'm a part of your experiment. Am I a tool for your work? Because the way you forced me in the box you created gives you the authority to oppress me. You bribe me by the looks of your world, so colorful, very new, very strange. You forced me to accept your cheap gifts in exchange of my precious identity. So much have changed from the day you forced me in that box. Growing up, I thought people were born confused because that's how they've always looked at me. Boxes, check one, check other. People don't know, they don't furrow between the layers like I do. They don't switch and twitch and actively make the decisions of which part of me belongs today, which aspect of my personality will offend the least, and blend the most and work and succeed and bury the lead. And I'm always an imposter, always lost, always asking for directions, and people point my way like a scarecrow, like tornadoes blowing me whichever the wind blows. Well, the Pacific don't want to play today. She's prepping for the consequences development has left in her wounded heart. The box is glaring and daring at me to choose one. Well, in the name of development, now I'm an expert at boxes. My whole life can fit inside it, and I've got it down to a science. I can pack my whole identity in an hour, because where there's roots, there's power. But I'm all topsoil. My blood runs like water and oil, refusing to stick. My grandma's mat weaved in patterns that tells the story of their journey, that story that explains my personality. Oh, that meal cooked in fire. All fit in a box, ready to be carried from door to door. But that's not the kind of box people ever ask for. So many lines in the sand, so many land wasted. I see both worlds so clearly. And I skip and jump and fall in between, never seen. I belong in the spaces between. Naka.
We will not return to what it was, but to what we're meant to be.
Let's tell our Pacific story the way it should be told. Let's tell it to our children.
Lunga te tai, lunga te vai. Lunga te moana. Hua tai. Hua tai. Lunga, lunga, lunga.
Vinaka Vakalevu Mata Dance Group. Now, from the chief guest's address this evening, you may have heard the brief breadcrumbs, I think, of the books, what the book is about. So very quickly, before I call upon Lily to come and tell us about the sale of the book, allow me to just quickly run through the authors and their chapter titles. Jione Havea from Cook Islands, introduction. Theresa Fox and Aisake Casimira from Fiji, the Pasifika Household, its discontent. Afereti Uili from Samoa, Abraham and the Curse of James Cook. Jione Havea from Tonga, Covenant, Chosen, Cover, Contest. Upolu Vaai from Samoa, We Are Earth, Redirtifying Creation. Tevita Havea from Tonga, New Ecumenism, a Negotiated Space. Manulani Meyer from Hawaii, Spiritualities Centered Around Aloha. Sereima Naisilisili from Fiji, Custodianship, Rewriting, Ecological. Lupe Matasila Melanie Anae from New Zealand, Collaboration or Collusion, The Need Churches Household. Kabini Sanga from Solomon Islands, Lamala Italambu. Arnie Siaki from Hawaii, Pacifica Economics. Francis Koya Vaka'uta, Rethinking Pacific Education for Future Resilience for Sustainable Pacific Societies. And concluded by Upolu Vaai and Aisake Casimira. So very powerful lineup of authors. I now call upon Lily from Pacific Theological College to come and brief us on the sale of the book. Nakalili.
Good evening, everyone. Just in regards to the sale of the book that are here tonight are actually not for sale. They are all display books. However, we are going to run another printing from next week. However, you can place an order with us tonight for your books and place your address and your contact details. Then we can deliver the books to your doors, or you can pick it up from IMR. If you place the order tonight, it'll be $15. But anytime later, other than today, it'll be $40 from the PTC Book Center. So that is all from the sale of books. So I hope, and the orders are done at the back of the last table that you entered. Thank you.
Vinakalili, so you've heard that, ladies and gentlemen. Tonight it's only $15. After tonight, it's $40. I now call upon Reverend Daniela Ratawa, Dan Ratawa, to move the vote of thanks.
Vinaka, my task tonight is to share our vote of thanks to our chief guest, Professor Unaisi Walu Nambombo Rauluni Mbamba, Acting Vice Chancellor, Fiji National University. Madam, I stand on behalf of the special and distinguished guest, on behalf of the PTC community, our college principal, Reverend Dr. Upolu Vaai, the faculty, the staff members, and my fellow colleagues, the students. And I'm here also on behalf of our household, the Pasifika Household, to say a few words of Vinaka Bagalevu for availing yourself and accepting the invitation, even though it was an 11-hour invitation, for officially launching the book Restoring the Pasifika Household. It is not a mistake to have someone in that caliber to be our guest of honor tonight. We can all be scholars. We can all be writers. But for an event like one we had tonight is only special for someone who is a senior in the field, someone who comes with a very wide spectrum of knowledge, experience, and wisdom. We thank you so much for your inspiring and motivating speech. It was powerful, informative, and inspiring to us. It sounds more of a motherly advice, full of compassion, love, and care, appreciating what is achieved and yet pushing us to future challenges. Your concern, as we comprehend, is not only in your knowledge, not only in papers, but they are manifested in the way you live, in your Fijian buininga, in your Pasifika smile, in the totonro and the lemongrass from Bungalei. But madam, lucky there was no lumi from Ngau mentioned in her speech. With all those words, we say thank you so much for your good heart and for solemnizing our occasion tonight. May God's blessing be upon you, your family, and the tremendous responsibilities ahead of you. Madam Vinaka Bagalevu, Nayala Vinaka. May we show our bigger Vinaka Bagalevu in the years remaining. Vinaka, to conclude our occasion tonight, we shall now call the college chaplain to come and conclude us with a word of prayer and benediction.
Thank you, Daniela. One of the things I wanted to say is that in addition to my role as chaplain, one of the other roles that I have is with Theresa to help with marketing the college. And dear Professor, if you wish to learn more of the theology that's behind this book, then if you come and join PTC, you would not be the oldest student by quite a way. One of our newest students is substantially older than you, and she is breathing life into the college every day at the moment. So please do, and the invitation goes to all of you that are not yet studying theology. Come and join and share in the stories that we are telling and rewriting and reweaving at PTC. We would love to see you. Let us give thanks and pray together. Loving and merciful God, the God who walked the earth and who spoke and told stories, the one who cried out that blessed were the poor, blessed were those who are starving for righteousness, blessed are those who mourn, blessed are all who are looking for righteousness and godliness and hope in the world. Blessed are those who tell stories and weave new futures. Blessed are those who hold hands with one another and care for the earth around us, the sea, the sky, all that lives and breathes. Thank you that you breathe breath into each and every one of us. And thank you that you long to see new life and new joy, laughter and happiness. Be with us as we share food and drink with one another and as we continue to tell stories. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. That concludes our events for this evening. And I thank you, Professor and Professor Vaai, the Principal. Would you like to go down? Oh. Yeah. So we will continue with the official part is over, but we still can network and make new friends and enjoy the drinks and the foods that is provided for us. Binaka bakalebu. My apologies. While we are enjoying the drinks and the food, I've been informed that there are two more poems just for entertainment while you are enjoying your drinks and the finger foods. Can I now call upon the two young academics with their poems? Oh, yeah, okay, come.
I am the land, sea, and sky. This is the voice of youth, a cry for help. They say my ancestors were voyagers. They say they braved the ocean. The stories are so familiar with time, yet I seek the answers to the same question: who am I? Change is a good thing. Better life, bigger school, fancy food. Accents that sound weird, excuse me, I don't mean to be rude, but really, is this the test of time? Who am I? Am I a whisper in the silent breeze of sandy beaches, the first fruit of a plentiful harvest? Am I the peak that the mountain reaches, the richness of the soil covers? Or am I the ideal image of media perfection, the ruthless hand of development's bad intentions? Is the rush of life merely holding me by the collar, dragging me through every note and every dollar? How high do the buildings have to be? Shh. Shh. Hush, great waters, we hear your cry. Like a battle of bloodshed, your tears fall dry. As the wishful sighs of a once pure land, oh, the grief of loss, an empty hand. Can you see the cry of the precious green, the fight of the vast blue, the scream of the land beneath, the turmoil of the lost few. Have we lost the sanity of time and space to know we live not only for today? So I ask again, who am I? More than all the good things foreign, I am a custodian of the land. Lines testify the toil of my hands. Oya unangonen daw, nangele na nongumbula. Isa, au tangida wale na nongu vanua. Na wei longa ni kau, udi wai eran ronro malua. Tangusi na wei sasanga, ni senga na yalo matua. I am a chief, an advisor, I am a priest and a warrior. The ocean is home to fish, but I have her heartbeat. Thoughtless, greedy, unsatisfied hunger for more and more power. For what? The unborn child asks. The future is today. I am not a shadow. Do you stop to think if it will be enough? Wisdom, O God, when will they do their part? So, who am I? More than the notes and the dollars, more than modernity. I am the land, the sky and sea. I beg you, open your eyes and look at me. Thank you.
We will not return to what it was, but to what we're meant to be.
Let's tell our Pacific story the way it should be told.
Wakatilu sakai anananda bitiraramba kumbuna toba ta kembur pasanga. Kere sar na tamba kauta mata nung serkali mete serakmanda. Singni kuwa esa bakame be rawai kian satigi bu me be awai kina nantambula keira na bulangi mai. Na itobo ke na bosa satigi bu me se abu mai isa sabakalolom na nanda kau muri mai. Na nanda itobo esa tiga bu me buawa mai ena kian sabe awai ke nambula keir na bulangi mai. Isa na nongu biti o de mengai buya tadaki mai kamer na numi nanda kau muri mai. Na tama ena mateni ka tumba sa sianga Vakayan rakina bakambula esa bakal laudange bakana pepa. Isa na wani mata esa tiga bu menggera membo na numi na nanda biti ndenga imbera. Na isul-sulu na ngonendai esa birawai tarose seleka-leka kena bibi matanggali ersa lure mai. Isa na nongum bininga sa tiga bu me uluwai mai ena bukungani kena dunia na bibi isa wendai. Nondi tutu bakabanoi esa tiga bu mele dabi ena non rasa sianga nikila na banoi sia na non reitabi na ika manu kau ersa tiga bu memburoro yani nunggu ker merna toran dei baki kame ka kweni ngole dabi basa bak sambalia esa ya tu ena ngona nikua beru basada kena be wali sala ko batker tungaya ni bakandua ersa sianga nikila sia wasia so de matua na ita matangali kena tau esa waki ker tunga bakandua. Nakila ka endandau kilatan kine sa reba ena kena sabi susemtaki na mon liba kena bi matanggal misini erangera daka bata kena sol selba ke okere amenda daungena lako enda nanga ibuki sa ambera na baka ngata kini bika iba politiki anda saba vi saumai non rasati ke bu me politiki nangele kena non ngoli enda marangeta bul mai o irana basu kena bulang ersa butini autu yandai ena non samai toran non gele kena kaenda token tumai. Nanda serkali o kereme sa tin manda nongi tatau menda marre na beka membalit kianda. Tobo bosa kena beka babulit kianda meka ko ningera sesea buna nonda bula enda do baka menea. Nungu wanga o kereme sa te kiala manda nongi tatau menda ka ko nivel denda ngaimbera. Reketi na lasi me sa te suka kirewa ngo stela na nomnindo ni bakantel.
So they can pass it on. Here on the edge, we remember who we are.
The road will be
A wooden house on a hill, vibrant blue, an outdoor kitchen, floors of grass, and firewood crackling. Smoke exits the chimney, and food awaiting to be served. This was home. A wooden house on a hill, fortified by ancient trees. Manna surrounds its endowment, awaiting instructions. I was barely 3, but I knew what it was like to be free. This was home. A wooden house on a hill, majestic as the light breaks through the darkness of the night. Now, with her eyes closed, absorbed the warm sunlight and gazed upon the village. This was home. A wooden house on a hill, the dining area spread with a 6-meter cloth. Members sit by orders of respect, no space for Goths. This was home. A wooden house on a hill. I was told to sit and eat like a lady. Mind you, I was merely 3, but I was the best lady I could ever be. This was home. A wooden house on a hill. We nudge each other as we sat for a meal. One cousin to the other. Make sure to greet now when she sits. This was home. A wooden house on a hill, strong as a mother. Now was peculiar, and I couldn't grasp why. But now I know she had to be strong in everyone's eye. This was home. Life made a change, and I moved. I missed the smell of burning firewood, the morning dew, and now to concrete house heated by the sun, the loud noise with no view. Was this home? People so busy, we didn't have a 6-meter spread. Eating in our own time, diet full of junk and bread. Gas stoves, kerosene stoves, with its black smokes. I grasp, and I choke. Was this home? The dawn breaks through the night and the fog of the city life. Nothing majestic about this, but air glooms like a restless wife. I haven't learned respect, customs, or traditions here. Was this home? Go to school, Ratu says. Do your best. Be home on time, complete your chores, no rest. I was now 15, but I still have questions. Was this home? I let go of who I was, disconnected from my roots and my pride. I focused on school and strive for almost a happy life. Was this home? Visiting the house on the hill was haven. Love was its embodiment, and life thrives. After so long, with so much, I started to feel alive. Now, with her graceful chamber and age marked her face like the aerial roots of a banyan tree. I'm a young woman by now. She greets me with the same warmth that I felt when I was 3. This was home. It wasn't soon after that now parted. Silence, tears, sadness, and heartbroken. I was clinging on the remnants of her home. What will it be now? Now's 109th was my final goodbye to the house on the hill. It sits quietly over the village without a feel, awaiting the next chief. I visited the village 3 years later, but only roamed far from it. The ancient trees reduced to nothing but mere prints on the land. Grass so big that I could see the 3-year-old me lost in its hands. Where is the manna? Where is its grace? What exactly was a home? Now I live a life where love and respect are dominant, carrying on the virtues of now and all that I've learned along the way. It is carried in the heart so prominent, in the fibers of my being, rooted in God, nature, and culture. A heart that beats for the future of my children, a rhythm that sings for the restoration of life for the latter. Not limited to the house on a hill. Home is surely where the heart is. Pinaka.